want to talk about the coronavirus, how it's impacted Seattle United, how it's impacted youth soccer in general. Hi, welcome to the Jimmy and Kyle Show. This is Jimmy McAllister.
Hi, I'm Jimmy. I'm the Director of Soccer at Seattle United.
And we brought some of our friends today to answer some questions for you. This is Seattle United Technical Director, Alex Chersky.
Hello. Technical Director, Boise CNL Director. Hello.
We've got Dr. John Dresner with us today, who is Seahawks doctor, UW medicine, and a parent in the club.
Thanks for having me here. I'm glad to be chair of the Medical Advisory Committee for Seattle United. I have 2 kids in the club and 1 graduate.
And we've got Seattle United Board President, Chris Tetham.
Hi there. This is my 4th year on the board. Served both as treasurer and president. I have 3 children in the club, an 08, an 06, and a 2010.
That means you have 3 children at home right now, doesn't it?
I've got 4 children.
Wow. Wow. Today we're going to look at some questions and answer some questions that you, the parents, have sent in for us. We might not always have the answer that you want to hear, but we're going to try to answer these questions as fairly as possible. Remember that this is an ongoing thing. It changes frequently. It's a very fluid situation. So we're going to try to give you the best answers we can with the information we have at hand.
And below in the video description, we'll have a link to each question that's there so you can skip ahead if you'd like to.
First off, I'd like to say that we at Seattle United consider ourselves a community asset. These are real tough times. We all appreciate that. And rest assured, we're doing our level best to keep the kids safe, keep the kids engaged, and continue being a community asset. If anybody in our community needs any help for any reason, be more than comfortable to call Alex, Kyle, Chris. We're here to help. It's going to be a tough go. We all realize that, but we're here as a community and we'll support you 100%. Kyle?
So Jimmy, the first question I want to ask is mainly for you. What is going on right now with the rest of the RCL season, since we were kind of towards the end of it for some age groups, right in the middle of it for some of the other age groups?
Well, as everybody knows, that soccer has been shut down for the time being. If the soccer god's willing, we'd like to finish out some RCL games. It would probably look like U13 and 14 boys and girls finishing up a couple games, and girls high school age finishing up on probably 2 weekends with double headers on each weekend, depending on when we start. Of course, if the start to whatever happens is delayed, this season would be washed away and we'd look at doing other things. But for the time being, we're hopefully going to be able to finish out the RCL season for some of the teams and move forward.
So that obviously leads to the next question is what happens with State Cup right now for all those teams?
You know, I played my first State Cup final when I was 12, and it was one of the biggest wins in my life, and I played a lot of years professionally. I understand how important State Cup is to everybody in our club. It's where you get to compete at the highest level, but unfortunately, I would highly doubt if the State Cup is going to happen. The State Cup generally has been over a period of a month with group games, semifinals, quarterfinals, finals. We just most likely won't have the time. So for this year, the State Cup is pretty much looking like it most likely won't happen.
Okay. And just to be clear, when you were 12 years old, what was your first State Cup victory?
First victory. It wasn't my first State Cup. It was my first victory.
Victory.
We won 2-1. The West Seattle Hammers, baby. I didn't score. Didn't play particularly well, but we won, and I'll always remember it for the rest of my life.
This is when they used to write things down on parchment paper before video. Right?
Wait,
It was 1969.
Jimmy, are you saying that you never won a soccer game until you were 12 years old?
State Cup final,
okay.
I said. State Cup
That's
final.
a tough
Remember
run.
that?
That's quite
State Cup
a...
Clarification's important.
Quite a story
we
there.
beat Lake Hills United 2-1 in Memorial Stadium.
Gotcha.
It was a 72-degree day in April. Not that I remember.
So everything's kind of a domino effect. So if RCL season is done, State Cup, we'll see what happens. I guess the next big question would be, and I'm sure everybody wants to know, is when will tryouts be? What will happen as dates get pushed back by the government, by the schools, whatnot?
You know, technically, Alex can answer the question. I can only say Depending on when we get back, we have a few case scenarios that we'll work with. It's absolutely mandatory that we have the younger tryouts because so many new kids come into our club at the ages of 8, 9, 10, 11. Depending on time, depending on when this we're allowed to play again, I think our technical and staff will have to work on what tryouts look like. I can only assure you that as we're sitting at home, we're looking at teams, we're looking at players. The coaches are always assessing players, so they're aware of what the players can do. We're going to try to create a trout environment that's the best for the kids, but we'll have to wait and see. Alex, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so, typically when we have tryouts among the coaching staff, the directors, and everybody involved, we know our players, and that's our job. We watch our players the entire year. Typically, the X factor of tryouts are any new players coming into the club. So we're well aware of every Seattle United player's ability. We're uncertain as to what tryouts will exactly look like at this moment in time. But rest assured, we know the players, and when we do make decisions, it's typically off of new players into the club. We're well prepared to operate just on the knowledge that we have now with our current players.
Great. And I think that's the beauty of the system that we have. Correct me if I'm wrong, but at any given time, you've got 4 or 5 coaches that might show up to a game, sit on a bench, whether it's summer tournaments, whether it's league games. These coaches have a lot of knowledge about each and every one of these players, whether they directly oversee them or not. So within our system, we have enough evaluations that go on throughout the year to be able to make informed decisions about each player.
Yeah, one of the big things when we started 10 years ago was to create a soccer culture of caring for the kids, knowing kids' names. If you can, sit on the bench, watch a game. I think it makes a difference when customers see that we're engaged, that we care about the kids. You very seldom see a game without coaches sitting on the bench talking about what we could do or what we should have done better. And I think it all comes down to culture. Again, we want to be known as a community asset, not just necessarily a soccer club.
So the next planning piece for families would be summer tournaments. Obviously things getting delayed. Where we at? Have there been any cancellations or tournaments that have changed dates so far? What does the outlook look like for summer season?
Again, depending on when we're able to get started again, I've been in constant contact with Washington Premier, whose tournament is usually around the 3rd week in June. We've talked with Bernie James at Crossfire about their tournament, which is in July. We've talked about Surf Cup. If this is delayed much further into the summertime, Washington Premier could look at changing the Rainier Challenge to around Surf Cup time. It's also going to depend on how long our customers are out of work. What can we afford? Can we afford as teams to go to Surf Cup? We just don't know what the environment's going to look at. So we've looked at a lot of these things. Depending on how everybody is when we come out of this, it might be a little bit more cost effective to drive down the road and play in the Rainier Challenge in July than everybody go to the Surf Cup. So we're working on every scenario. We are going to run our Seattle Cup with Starfire. If the dates are open and we can do that, we're trying to get back to normalcy as quick as possible. But again, it's all in the hands, it's outside our control. So we're just trying to control all the variables we can control, Kyle.
The comment about Surf Cup, great segue. And John, I want to ask you, some families may be concerned about the travel, right? So you take flights down there. We also have a tournament in Cincinnati coming up, the Super Copa that some of the teams are going to. What obviously right now is different than maybe what August is going to look like. But for people that are concerned about the travel implications, can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. Thanks, Kyle. And first, I just want to applaud all of you, Jimmy, Kyle, Alex, Rich, who's not here, and Chris and the board. I just think everyone's done such a wonderful job from Seattle United handling this sort of unprecedented, crisis that's happened in our community. I think as the club has already demonstrated, no one's going to be playing soccer and no one's going to be considering travel and stuff until public health officials say that it's safe. And I think, that timeline is unpredictable right now. It may be that we're able to restart things maybe earliest at the end of April, early May, but many of the predictions go much longer into June or July, and that may really delay when youth soccer across the nation can really restart what we're doing. Once it's safe to get back and practicing as a group, going to the fields, I think it will also be safe probably to travel. And um, one thing that we can do for the families and the players, if we are getting on an airplane, is everything that we've already been talking about earlier in terms of good hygiene, washing your hands, having hand sanitizer available, wiping down your tray table and your armrests and the screen before you get on, not sharing drinks with your teammates and things like that. That's just generally good hygiene. So whether it's coronavirus, other summer viral infections, influenza, etc., those are just good hygiene recommendations. So I don't think we'll be traveling until public health officials say that it's okay, and I think we'll all sort of know as that builds up again.
Thanks, John. Yeah, I think it's also important for everybody to kind of know we live in our own little bubble here in Seattle, and obviously we were one of the first impacted areas, but the rest of the country is going through this as well. We're starting to go through this with the shutdowns and league season, the state cups being canceled. I know that I was on a conference call the other day with U.S. Youth Soccer, and they are trying to figure out what's going to happen with regionals and national championships this summer. That our national championships aren't until late July, but the foresight out there is that these things may not be able to happen as more and more areas become affected by this. So.
And to add, I'd like to thank Dr. Dresner. We were one of the first clubs to cancel a trip to Idaho, which was girls ECNL, and it was painful. None of us take those decisions lightly. Everybody here wants to play. We're all ex-soccer players that would like nothing better to do than play. But with the leadership of our medical advisory committee, it made the decision a lot easier for us as a club. We will always, always abide by what our medical advisory committee says when it comes to issues such as this. So,
one thing I'd note is just that and again, I would thank Dr. Dresner for all his help, and the board appreciates it as well as the entire club. But really, the decisions are out of the hands of soccer folks at this point, and John, you may comment on it's really being driven by sort of government recommendations. We're no longer looking to U.S. Soccer, U.S. Youth Soccer, or Washington State Soccer.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the decisions of the club are certainly made by the executive committee and the board and input from a lot of different people. Moving forward, I totally agree, Chris. I mean, we're sort of waiting on state and federal and even our county in Seattle, public health officials to guide us. And, the issue, I think people everywhere are really starting to realize this issue is bigger than all of us, right? It requires a collective commitment from the community for us to get on top of it. That everyone practice the appropriate social distancing, that we're staying home as much as possible if we can. This has obviously impacted, training and individual goals, team goals, and stuff like that. But I think everyone can accept that those goals may not necessarily be as high or as important as just the overall public health of our community and our nation.
Perfect. Thanks, John. Alex, I want to ask you, obviously we're out till April 24th as it stands right now. And you've been working on some technical videos that kids can work on. What if this extends further? Are there going to be more videos for kids to be able to use as a resource and train with, or what's your plan with that?
Absolutely. Look, we are currently creating content right now. I think it's important for kids to realize that this is a moment for them to be creative on their own training and having their own ball and figuring out ways to train on their own in a safe environment that's approved by your parents, and we try to structure it to where you're getting a certain amount of hours per week within the week whenever you can find that time to find space. It's simply a flat piece of land, a wall, and a ball. And I think that we're going to be creating videos. We have 6 weeks of content prepared already. And if this goes longer than that, then we'll create more. Our job is to support you players and to provide for you as much as we can remotely. I think there, hopefully can create some type of solidarity in training alone. If you guys look at any player, any team in the world, they're going through the same situation you are. So you can get ideas from a lot of different people, but we'll be sending out weekly homework. I think it's important to provide structure for our kids, parents as well, to try to hold your son or daughter accountable to that as well. But look at it this way. Every player is going through the same thing. What can you do to separate yourself as an individual on the ball? Fitness, ball striking, technical work. There's a limit to what you can do. We're encouraging not more than a few people, 4 max, and always apart and practicing the appropriate social distancing. But there's a lot of creative ways to train, and we'll be here to encourage you and support you through every step of the way, regardless of how long this goes.
And the other point I'd like to make is all you guys out there, young guys, young girls, are great with the iPhone or whatever device you use. Film yourself and send it in to us. Let us see what you're doing. If you got some cool trick, or you can juggle, or you do something awesome, or you do whatever it is, send it in, because we'd like to see you guys out there having fun still. Again, like Alex says, keep your distance, small groups, but show us your stuff. That's what we like to do. We're soccer coaches, and that'll give us something to do as well. That's
going to be my next point, is that we're trying to get everybody involved, the coaches involved. You might see some of your favorite coaches attempting some of the things that may not look as mobile or as clever as it was in their prime, but we'll be out there. You'll see it just next week. We'll be sending some stuff out, and it should be a good time for sure.
So, Alex, just to be clear, the videos that we've sent, that's not the only thing they can do. There are other resources out there that these kids should be utilizing, that they can go above and beyond what it is that we've sent out.
Absolutely. So, what we sent out is what we'd like you to work on, and hopefully appropriate for, small amount of space and limited resources. But, again, this is your time to be creative. You can draw from a number of resources. We encourage it. Any type of work with the ball at this point is valid, right? Anything you creatively can do with the ball, experimenting with the ball and using your environment in any creative way. Yeah, that's it. It's a completely open thing, and we're just encouraging you to participate, be active, and try new things. Yeah, always within a safe environment, but absolutely, this is the time to do all of that for sure.
So on top of the technical videos that we also have fitness built in as well. I know I've had a question from a parent. Is there any kind of strength and conditioning for those middle school, high school age kids? Any kind of resource for them to use on that to continue to develop that physical part as well? Absolutely. Outside of Jimmy offering his services as a personal trainer, of course, because he's fit as a fiddle, as we can all see.
Hey, I'm over 50.
Yeah, certainly. So there is some strength and conditioning already built into the fitness portion of our training, and we'll absolutely be looking at every single opportunity we can provide for players. I think sometimes a gym and the resources a gym might have is ideal for that, and obviously that's kind of off the table right now. But for sure, we're looking to provide as much content as we can, including strength and fitness. It just may look a little bit different than what a player may have done in the past. But again, we're currently looking at online platforms for that as well.
Perfect. One thing that we were right in the middle of when the shutdown occurred was player evaluations, which are a big part of the club. We give one out in the fall, we give one out in the spring, just so that players can track their progress a little bit, have a sit down with their coach, hear some direct feedback on top of the feedback that they get during trainings and games. Obviously, those meetings have had to be canceled. If this continues, how can players get their evaluations from their coaches?
Excellent. So We'll look at things like video conferencing and phone calls. I think that's not ideal at this point. We've always maintained that a personal face-to-face conversation is what we want to provide for our families. I say perhaps if the specifics on social distancing is there and you can have a conversation, even if it's 10 feet apart, we want to make sure we're advising the right thing. But for sure, we'll provide that. That personal evaluation, that personal meeting. It's just what form that will take. We want to make sure that we have everybody comfortable with that setup. But I think it depends on the schedule of when soccer resumes. But we'll be well prepared to do that for sure.
Perfect. Thanks, Alex. John, this goes into a comment that Chris had made a little while ago about how are we following shutdown rules in terms of, are we following public school system? I know that Shoreline Public Schools shut down for a week longer than Seattle Public Schools. Who do we kind of look at besides, or who do you guys look at as a medical committee to help make those decisions?
Yeah, sort of all of the above. I think we're looking at it's a moving target and trying to stay on top of it. And most of all, what's coming out from Seattle and King County Public Health and then the state. I think now that the state government and Governor Inslee has made a total stoppage of all schools until a certain date. I think it's April 24th, which may well get extended. I think we'll first and foremost be looking to just sort of the governmental policy and guidance on when it's safe to return to school and stuff like that. Because I think that schools will start to do it all at once, both private and public. That would be what I anticipate. If not, then I think we'll probably be the most conservative possible, which is sort of what we were doing, trying to follow the lead of Seattle Public Schools and understand what they're doing.
Perfect. Question I've gotten from parents, phone calls, emails, whatnot, is it safe to do private training right now? One-on-one training?
I think it depends. For sure, this is an opportunity. We're sort of in like an extended off season, right? So as Alex talked about, this is an opportunity for kids to build their fitness, build their strength, work on their technical skills. And then the question comes up, well, can I go train with a partner? Can I train with an individual coach somewhere, et cetera? Can I get a small group together? There's a big push, at least for the next 2-3 weeks, that pretty much everyone, if you don't have to leave your house, if it's non-essential to leave your house, you sort of don't want to leave your house. That's just sort of the community commitment. But I think it's okay to go out and take a run, take a jog on their own. They, as long as they're keeping their distance from others. If you choose to go to a field and play, you want to sort of know what you're doing and who you're with. So let's say you're going to meet a teammate. I think I would be hyper diligent to make sure that the teammate's not sick. They got no symptoms. There's no one in their household who has symptoms. Everyone washes their hands before they get there. You have to understand that when your ball's rolling around on a field that the community is using, and there's a lot of people on those fields right now, there's other stuff on the field. So if you're touching the ball with your hands, you can't touch your face. You've got to wash your hands right after, and just be really hyper diligent about your own hygiene. All those things, going and playing on a field and touching a ball and stuff like that, those are all low risk procedures and whatnot. But the general sense right now, at least for the next 2 or 3 weeks, is to try to do as little of that as a group as possible, and then sort of pick it back up. So I think each family has to make their own decision on how they interpret the guidance right now, how restrictive they want to be for their kids, what they feel best. If the kids in the groups are going to get out like that, I think everyone just needs to be super diligent about their hygiene, and not sharing water bottles, not shaking hands, certainly no physical contact in the groups, things like that.
Thanks, John. I know Jimmy is very concerned about the golf course situation right now with the shutdown. Are those safe as well?
Golf courses. Interesting. Again, I think you have to, don't share clubs and keep your distance from people and watch what you're doing.
Perfect.
Well, when Kyle and I play, we never hit it in the same
We're-
area anyway, so don't worry.
We're on the
I'm
opposite
pretty- I'm
ends of the
pretty safe.
fairway.
I'm pretty
Someone's
safe.
in the sand trap. I understand.
So, and along with Alex's comment earlier about small groups. So right now we've kind of said, okay, some of these activities that are on the videos can be done in groups of 4 with appropriate distance and whatnot. What's your take on that?
Well, again, I think that's reasonable. I think it's reasonable when everyone's committed to super hygiene. And you have to make sure that that's the case, and also make sure that the kids are speaking beforehand, or parents are speaking beforehand, that no one in that household is sick. Having said that, I think there will be families who right now sort of choose to just wait a little bit before they start those small group, recommendations. Because the general sense in the community right now is, if it's non-essential, then stay at home. And
So this would be,
yeah.
go ahead, John. This would be something for the parents then, if your kids are gonna go out and play with 3 mates or whoever, the parents pretty much have to do the due diligence with the other people to make sure it's safe for their kids. And as parents, it's always our responsibility to make sure our kids are safe. So I'd recommend, if you're gonna go out, do your due diligence, know who your daughter or son is training with, and make sure it's a healthy environment.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'll just make a point that we've specifically created some activities and exercises with good distance, with appropriate distance, and that will be demonstrated in the videos for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'd echo that and say that if teams are creating sort of email groups and saying let's just get together on the weekend and train, probably advise against that and stick to small groups where you can sort of control the environment a bit better and focus on hygiene.
Yeah, absolutely. And understand also that, we have professional teams, whether it's baseball or soccer, Sounders and the Reign, they're on hold. And so they're in an off-season format right now, and they're not even training in large groups either. So I fully agree, Chris.
Thanks, John. So Chris, question for you. How often is the club going to send out updates on where we're at, what we're doing? How much is too much? How much is too little?
Well, I think we're all sort of in the place where we're checking daily with the state and getting updates from. I think people are living on sort of their news sites and consuming more of it than even they'd like to. And understand that's also that can cause anxiety as well. But with regard to our soccer community at this point, we're essentially shut down. Our goal is to continue to deliver value for our families, for our players. Things like Alex talked about, being able to communicate with your coaches, being able to, if there are things that you can practice at home, being able to receive content in the form of the video content that the club has created. So our goal is to continue to sort of communicate with our families and deliver content for you. As far as updates on coronavirus, as soon as we receive any additional info, we'll send it out to you. We were doing that quite a bit in the early days. We were talking multiple times a day as an organization, both the soccer side, the medical side, and the board and the executive group. But if we have information on a weekly basis, we'll send it out. We'll continue to update you as possible. I would like to make just a couple quick notes about just the organization of Seattle United, how we're structured and how we'll be able to maintain through this, because I know it's a really trying time for small businesses. We are a nonprofit. We're a sizable nonprofit with over 2,200 kids in the organization. But we also have reserves, and we have a board of directors that oversees the organization that has been very diligent in monitoring sort of the budget and impact of the shutdown. So I think we're actually very well situated as an organization. Our biggest concern is really our families and our players. And we want you to know as a community that if you need help, you can reach out to us, because again, as Jimmy said, we view ourselves as a community asset. It's important for us to be there for you, not just in keeping the kids busy so that they can kick a soccer ball against a wall, but also an understanding what's safe and prudent going forward. And we want nothing more than to get back to playing soccer. Absolutely, but safety is paramount, and that's always going to come first. That's primary for the board. That's primary for everybody here at this table.
And along those same lines, Jimmy, when soccer pieces come up about the RCL season, stake up season, I would assume that we would send out information at that point, probably not before then.
We all participate in various state associations. Kyle's on the board of the NPSL, which are a select group. I'm on the RCS, which is the group that oversees the RCL. So as soon as these things happen, we'll let you know. We had a conference call on Monday discussing State Cup. I would think there'd be some information for you coming soon. As far as playing the end of the RCL season, that's on hold again, waiting to see what happens. So we're all on different committees. We all take place in different state levels. So as soon as we find out, we will let you guys know.
Right. Every event is predicated upon the calendar, how long shutdowns last. So as soon as we find out, we'll send out that information.
Yeah.
Just last question. I mean, if parents have questions, whatever it may be, who can they reach out to?
They can reach out to Alex. They can reach out to Kyle. They can reach out to anybody that was in the club. You could call your director. When we first started talking about doing this podcast, Kyle and I, it was supposed to be fun. It was supposed to be a lot of laughs. And obviously, I apologize for everybody. This might not be what it was. But I'm going to tell a joke to make this thing sound a lot more fun. So anyway, it's a joke that the kids can listen to as well. In the old days, they used to have a football game between the animal kingdom. And the coach called all the animals over and said, animals, whatever you do, don't kick the ball off to the rhino. Kangaroo hopped up to the ball, kicked it off, went straight to the rhino, touchdown, 6 points down. Well, in the animal kingdom, anyway, the team that scores gets to get the ball again. So at halftime, it was like 46-0. And the coach called all the animals over and said, I told you, Kangaroo, do not kick it to the rhino. He's too big. He's too strong. He'll bowl through everybody. Kangaroo hops up the ball, kicks it off straight to the rhino. Rhino's running for the end zone. 10 yards before the end zone, he's tackled. Nobody saw who tackled the rhino. So the coach calls timeout and calls all the animals over. And he says, who tackled that rhino? And the centipede stood up and said, I did, sir. He said, well, where the heck were you in the first half? He says, tying my boots, sir. Anyway, I don't know how good that was, but there you go. It was an attempt to lighten the subject up here a little bit.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of the first episode of Jimmy and Kyle Show. Thanks for joining us, and I promise in the future we'll have better jokes than that, and we'll have a lot more fun.
Thanks to everybody. Chris, John, Alex, Kyle, thank you very much. Guys, thank you. It's great. Thank you.